On the afternoon of February the 14th, 1945, Charles Walton, a 74-year-old farm labourer, is brutally attacked and murdered, pinned to the ground with his own pitchfork, his throat slashed. The work of a deranged escape prisoner, a local farmer with an axe to grind, or a ritualistic killing. I'm Kat Park. Join me with your favourite tipple as we unfold the details of this grisly and brutal case of Charles Walton Unsolved in the Murder Wine Club. The year is 1945. The date, 14th of February. The location, Lower Quinton, Warwickshire. World War II has intensified with a devastating attack on Dresden in Germany, killing more than 30,000 people. The Evening Standard costs 1 penny and a pint of beer 5 pence. Charles Walton is a widower who has lived in Lower Quinton all of his life, renting the same cottage since World War I. Although he suffers from rheumatoid arthritis and uses a walking stick, Charles, at 74 years of age, is still working the land. For the past 9 months, he's been employed at the Firs, a farm occupied and run by local farmer Alfred Potter. It's 8:30 a.m. on Valentine's Day. Charles leaves his home, 15 Lower Quinton, the home he shares with his 33-year-old adopted daughter Edith. He sets off on his mile walk to work, and with him he takes his lunch, a piece of fruit cake, and his tools, a pitchfork and a slash hook, a double-edged pruning tool with a sharpened straight edge on one side and a concave cutting edge on the other. Notably, he's left his wallet behind. It's a bright but bitterly cold morning as Charles walks through Lower Quinton churchyard. He's on his way to a field known locally as Hill Ground on the slopes of Meon Hill. 2 elderly people see him passing through the churchyard at approximately 9 a.m. This is the last time Charles Walton is seen alive. It's 6 p.m. Edith, who works as a printer's assembler at the Royal Society of Arts in Lower Quinton, arrives home. She is normally greeted by Charles, but tonight the cottage is empty and lies in eerie darkness. Charles is nowhere to be found. The dinner she has left out earlier for him remains untouched. Instinctively, she knows something is wrong. Charles is a creature of habit, a known loner, and is always home by 4 p.m. at the latest. A worried Edith calls on their neighbour Harry Beasley of 16 Lower Quinton, explaining that Charles is nowhere to be found. They search the nearby fields but find no sign of him. The concerned pair hurriedly make their way to the Firs and alert Alfred Potter, Charles's employer, that he has not returned home. It's now 6:15 p.m. Harry and Edith arrive at the farm. Potter claims that he last saw Charles slashing hedges earlier in Hillground Field. It is pitch black. The group grab their torches and immediately start to walk towards Hillground. As they walk, Potter informs the pair that he came to the field to cut some hay at noon and saw Charles at work. The search party increase their steps as they approach the hedgerows where Potter has allegedly last seen Charles. Edith, Harry and Potter begin to walk along the hedges, shining their flashlights frantically as they go, calling for Charles. It does not take long to find him. in an isolated corner of hill ground, just a quarter of a mile from the nearest road, Charles is found lying on his back. A slash hook is embedded in his throat. A pitchfork pins his body to the floor. The handle of the pitchfork has been wedged under the hedge. Charles's face and head are splattered in blood. It's 6:30 p.m, and Harry Peachy, a local, is walking on the other side of the hedge and hears Edith's blood-curdling scream. Rushing over, Peachy encounters Potter standing over Charles's lifeless body, and Harry Beasley trying to comfort a now deeply distressed and inconsolable Edith. Potter takes charge, ordering Peachy to fetch the police immediately. Beasley thinks he should take Edith home, leaving Potter alone in the dark with Charles's body. PC Lomasny is the first officer to arrive on the scene at 7:05 p.m. and is acutely aware that Potter is acting strangely. He is surprised when Potter makes an excuse that he's cold and tries to leave before reinforcements arrive. Lomasny finds it incomprehensible Potter wishes to leave, especially as Charles is his employee and has been found murdered on his land. Potter disappears just as Stratford CID turn up, and by 11:30 p.m, CID officers are combing the scene. Professor Webster, pathologist for the West Midlands Forensic Science Labs, has just arrived. The investigation into the brutal murder of Charles Walton is now underway. The post-mortem reveals Charles died from shock due to grave injuries to his neck and chest. The time of death occurred between 1 and 2 p.m. on the 14th of February. He had been hit over the head with his walking stick, presumably to disarm him. Charles's walking stick was discovered 3.5 yards away from his lifeless body, covered in his blood and hair. Charles's trachea had been cut deep, the attack so severe that he is nearly decapitated. There is bruising to his chest, with several rib bones broken. Defence wounds are evident too. A cut to his left hand, bruises to the back of his right hand. Charles had tried in vain to protect himself from his attacker. Professor Webster concludes 2 weapons have been used, a stabbing weapon and a cutting weapon, which he presumes are the pitchfork and slash hook. It's further stated that the cutting weapon has been wielded at least 3 times with great violence. This is a savage and terrifying attack that would have taken a man or woman of quite some strength to have killed Walton alone. Charles's horrific and gruesome murder has sent shockwaves around the tight-knit community of Lower Quinton. Police are concerned a madman is on the loose, and the fear amongst the villagers is growing. Early on in the investigation, Stratford-upon-Avon police decide to ask Scotland Yard to assist them with this case. The Chief Constable of Warwickshire pens a message the very next day, saying, "The murder was either committed by a madman or one of the Italian prisoners who are in a camp nearby." Robert Fabian, Scotland Yard's prolific detective, and his partner Detective Sergeant Albert Webb are assigned to the case and join Stratford CID on the 16th of February. They start to investigate all avenues. No one is left out of the picture, and everyone becomes a suspect. Fabian sets up an incident room at Stratford-upon-Avon's police headquarters. An aircraft from nearby RAF Leamington is flown over the murder site, taking detailed photos of hill ground and the surrounding area. The spot where Charles Walton's body was found is marked on a sketch map based on RAF aerial photographs of the area by a Red Cross. Police start their inquiries by looking into Charles's life and affairs, and find the consensus that he is an inoffensive man, but one who speaks his mind when needs must. He is not disliked, but is a person who doesn't like to socialise with his neighbours, preferring to wander the countryside on his own. Statements are taken from over 500 residents of Upper and Lower Quinton. Some in the village talk of old superstition and alleged involvement in local witchcraft and covens. Strange things seem to happen around Charles. Birds flock to his hand, and there are whispers he can tame a wild dog by his voice alone. As a young man, he's earned himself a reputation as a trainer of horses. However, most locals believe that Charles has the wisdom of age, and living a life of a rural man knows the old ways. Fabian and his team dismiss the witchcraft theory, preferring to deal with the evidence before them. When interviewing locals, the detectives are met with a wall of silence. Villagers of Upper and Lower Quinton do not take kindly to strangers, especially when those strangers are poking their noses into their private affairs. With no apparent motive for the murder, Fabian orders an investigation into Walton's financial affairs. In June 1930, Walton deposited £227 and 10 shillings into his Midland bank account. This is money Walton has inherited from his wife, approximately £12,000 in today's money. By 1939, the balance has dwindled to £11 and 11 shillings and 9pence. Charles had been making numerous withdrawals over those years, but never more than £10 at a time. It is soon established and confirmed by Alfred Potter that Walton had been working for him for the past 9 months, and usually worked about 4 days each week, weather permitting. Walton is paid 18p per hour. His wages normally are paid at the end of each fortnight, sometimes weekly. The last pay packet of £2 and 15 shillings was given to him on the 10th of February. Edith confirms that Walton pays her £1 per week housekeeping, and their rent is 3 shillings per week. He also receives 10 shillings a week old age pension. Police conclude there is more than enough money to live off. Charles has worked his entire life and was frugal with his lifestyle. But when he died, his total assets came to no more than £5. A question the police keep asking is, where has all the money gone? The more the police delve into Walton's finances, the more they lean towards robbery as a motive. Charles may have misled the people around him into thinking he had more money than he actually had. A local farm worker recalls a specific conversation back in 1943. A fellow labourer had lost a £1 note, and whilst discussing this, Charles announced that it was silly to carry that amount of money around, and was quick to add he wasn't short of £200 or £300. His family, including Edith, were also under the impression that Charles had a few £100s saved up, and are astonished to find he's been lying about it. Fabian and his team delve deeper into Charles's affairs, searching his home and belongings. They find no financial records to show where and who the money could have gone to. It is concluded that Walton is a secretive type, and the mystery surrounding his money is almost as great as the mystery surrounding his death. With no clear motive, the police take the view that the murder has been committed by either an Italian prisoner from the nearby prisoner of war camp or someone closer to home. The list of suspects begins to grow, starting with the people close to the murder scene. No one is left out of the picture. Everyone is a suspect. This is the first of 3 episodes of the Charles Walton Unsolved case. If you like our show, please give us a 5-star rating and review, and remember to tell your friends. Thank you for supporting the Murder Wine Club podcast. We really do appreciate it. You can listen to all the episodes of the Charles Walton case right now before anyone else by joining the Murder Wine Club Access All Areas membership. You'll not only get early episode access, but you are invited to a monthly psychic detective session with one of our psychic mediums, plus bonus episodes and behind-the-scene access. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/murderandwine and join today. Subscribe on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you are listening right now.